Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. What if extraterrestrials aren't actually beings from other worlds? What if they're not extraterrestrials at all? What if they're actually beings from this planet and they haven't even evolved yet? They're actually beings from the far future, yet to evolve, yet to even appear, and they're traveling back in time into the long past and visiting us right now in what we perceive as the present. Actually, these beings are coming here from some future location on the same planet where they evolved, and they're checking out what it used to be like here. What if that's what's going on here? That's been a suggestion that was put forth recently in a op-ed, an opinion piece by a retired Air Force vet and researcher, and we're going to talk about that today. This is Mike Ricksecker, and he had an opinion piece that appeared on Christmas Day, and we're going to go through some of this, not the whole thing, but some of it. He talks about this hypothesis. Anyway, he says one such hypothesis for these reported objects and why they seem to disappear so quickly is that these craft may not be extraterrestrial at all, that they are actually time travelers from the future. These UFOs and UAP may be us disappearing in and out of this moment in time to another in the Earth's future. Now, I've heard stuff like that before. I've actually heard Jacques Vallée make a statement to that effect once. He's talking about that maybe it's us coming back, checking ourselves out, that maybe we're going to evolve into these alien-looking creatures and then we're going to come back and check ourselves out. I never really believed in that theory. I think that they are beings from other worlds. That's just my opinion. Doesn't make me right. But that's just what I think. I think that they're beings coming here from other places. But some people have other theories they want to talk about, including this one here. Anyway, continuing, it says, this suggestion may sound like some sort of plot device out of a science fiction novel or film, but the concept is not a fantasy. Time is a human construct, a device and measuring tool to help describe our existence within our current reality. It helps us to keep track of the season, determine when to plant crops, the correct moment to show up at work, or the kids need to be at the bus stop, and so forth. It's a rather helpful mechanism we've devised. All of this is carried out within the fourth dimension, of which, according to our theoretical physics, there could potentially be as many as 11. Each dimension has access to the ones below it. From our fourth dimension, we are freely able to interact with the three below it, objects, planes, and lines. However, the fifth dimension and above are elusive to us. If we were to suddenly find ourselves within that realm, the world would look completely foreign to us, much like a fish hoisted out of its watery universe and discovering there is far more beyond. Now, these are great points. Again, though, there's a lot of different issues I have with time travel, the entire concept of time travel, particularly into the past. I mean, I think it's possible that maybe human beings could travel into the far future by some means, like maybe by entering some cryogenic chamber with the idea that you're going to stay there for 1,000 years before you're revived and then brought out into a future world. I think that possibly could be something that happens. Maybe we'll be able to develop some sort of technology that keeps us in some sort of a suspended animation for years and years and years in the future. I don't know. That could be. I just can't imagine how anything could travel back into the past, because there's just so many different issues that would create. That's part of it. I mean, anybody who's seen the Back to the Future movies knows what I'm talking about. Or some people think that you really can't change the things that anything that does happen that happened in the past is already happened. So that means if there were beings from other worlds or from the future coming into the past, they've already, and say for instance, there were beings from the future that came to our past, to 1947, for instance, and then crashed at Roswell. They would have already known that happened before they even went back into the past. There should have been information available to them in history books that showed, hey, guess what? If we go back into the past, one of us is going to crash here in Roswell. I see. There's all these different kinds of issues that time travel creates, which I just can never wrap my head around. So that's why I have an issue with it. However, the theory is very interesting. Let's continue here. It says, those who have mastered time travel will have mastered the ability to ascend to these other higher spatial dimensions and be able to access time as if it were an object or a series of objects, each moment, perhaps, like a photograph in a complete stack of photographs encompassing every moment of the existence of our universe. Will humanity have figured out how to do that in the future here on Earth in order to travel through time to not only to appear as our UFO and UAP now, but also as our unidentified aerial objects in the past and future? It's certainly possible, and why do these travelers have to be human? So that's where we're getting into here. This is the caveat to this theory, is that they're not human, that there's something here that's going to be here in the future that's going to yet to even evolve, and millions upon millions of years way down the line, a different race of beings that aren't humans will be gone, just like the dinosaurs, but these other things are going to evolve, and then they're going to develop their own technology, and eventually they're going to travel back in time, and that's what we're seeing right now. It's an interesting idea, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, continuing here, it says, we are within a unique period of the history of our planet at nearly halfway through its existence. It is estimated that the Earth is approximately 4 to 5 billion years old, and it's believed it will be here for another 5 billion years, at which point the sun will have become a large enough red giant to encompass the planet and destroy it. To put into context how old Earth really is, the last of the dinosaurs died out about 64 million years ago. That's just over 1% of the entire lifetime of the planet ago. Yet the oldest known remains of Homo sapiens dates back only to about 315,000 years. We haven't been here as a species all that long in the grand scheme of the planet. Will we even be here another 315,000 years from now, let alone 64 million years with the crash course on which our society seems to be? Perhaps. Yeah, we are on a crash course, doesn't it seem? I have trouble imagining the human race lasting too much longer at this point. I mean, we have these, for all of us, we've been living under the threat of nuclear annihilation since the day we've been born. Anyway, continuing here, it says, or perhaps not. It's quite possible that in another 64 to 100 million years from now, humans will no longer exist on planet Earth for any number of reasons, whether we annihilate ourselves, succumb to some killer virus, are obliterated by some catastrophic event, and so forth. At that point, there could be another intelligent life form that evolves on Earth, creates a mighty civilization, and eventually develops time travel technology. In other words, yes, some of the UFOs and UAP that we are witnessing may very well be time travelers from Earth, but that doesn't mean they have to be human. For that matter, they don't even have to be indigenous to the planet at all. Given a similar scenario for the extinction of humankind millions of years from now, some spacefaring extraterrestrial race could discover our planet, deem it inhabitable, colonize it, and eventually develop time travel technology. Thus, we could be witnessing time travelers originating from Earth, but still are extraterrestrial in nature. Now, let me just stop there for a second. I think that that's possible, that it could be happening right now, that there could be some kind of colonization going on right now. I have issues with time travel. I think it's an interesting theory. It's fun to think about. It's fun to, play with here a little bit and imagine the different scenarios. And I mean, it's mind bending and all that, but I don't think it's that complicated. I don't think that that's what's going on. I think that just in my opinion, and it doesn't make me right, I think that these things are coming from other planets. I mean, if you look at the alien abduction literature that's been out there for years, books by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and John Mack, among others. I mean, the Betty and Barney Hill story. I mean, they're talking about coming from a specific place within this galaxy. The beings, that's what they told Betty Hill. And that's what I think. I think that some of them are coming from actual other planets, and somehow they figured it out. They've been around a lot longer than us, obviously. They figured out some kind of technology that allows them to travel incredible distances through space to go to other planets. And they figured it out. It's that simple. I know a lot of scientists here will say it's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to anything we can understand now, but it's not impossible if, say, we're around another 1,000 years from now. Where are we going to be? I mean, just think about this. Just 200 years ago, I mean, the steam locomotives were just starting to become a thing at that time. I mean, that was just the beginning of that era. I mean, in 200 years, look at the progress mankind has made. What's it going to be like in 1,000 years if we're still here, or 10,000 years? We're going to be out there traveling this galaxy and maybe other galaxies for all we know. I mean, I think that's where we're heading. We're going to be doing the same thing, I believe, that these beings that are here now are doing. We're going to be out there searching for other worlds, for adventure, for science purposes, for whatever, just for discovering new worlds. That's basically what we're doing it right now. We're sending out probes to we have things on Mars right now. I mean, we have these advanced telescopes out in space trying to get the best pictures we can of the universe, of the galaxy. We're going to be doing the same thing that these beings are doing right now. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that they are beings from other worlds. I don't think it's from other dimensions. I know there's going to be a lot of people that will disagree with my position. And I know anything I'm saying here doesn't make me right. I do know this much, though. There are other kinds of beings here. I know that for a fact. I know that, right? They're here. And that's the whole question is, what are they doing? Why are they here? Where do they come from? But you just think about it. Here was an article I actually came across because I remember a few months back I saw this, and I looked it up before I started doing this podcast today, and it was about the unveiling of a new flying car. Some company unveiled it just earlier this year in September in Detroit, and I want to just go through this article here a little bit. Look at where we're heading right now. Look what the human race, we're going to be, all of us in 10 years, 20 years from now, we're going to be not driving around, we're going to be flying around in cars. Flying cars. That's where we're heading. Anyway, here's the headline here. It says, Aleph's flying car unveiled at Detroit Auto Show. Imagine your drive to work is just a quick flight. That could open up the possibilities of where you live dramatically. Aleph wants that to be a reality as it unveiled its plan to build and sell flying cars. On Wednesday, during the first day of media availability at the 2023 Detroit Auto Show, Aleph Aeronautics unveiled its concept for a flying car. The flying car, which took several years for the company to develop and is autonomous, was flown during the media days of the auto show. It's powered by 4 small engines where wheels would traditionally sit, is equipped with a mesh on the top to allow air through for the propellers. It's 100% electric, has a maximum flying range of 200 miles. It's made of ultralight carbon fiber material and is environmentally friendly. It's also made to be safer than anything that flies today. He said it has more safety features than helicopters and airplanes. There was a major problem to solve, how to make it aerodynamic and how to fly it without wings, which would break the laws of physics. To solve the problem, the car, after takeoff, turns vertical with the driver remaining in the center in a gimbal cabin, which is similar to a gyroscope. Yeah, when you look at this car, I mean, it almost looks like a square flying saucer with a dome on top. There's a picture here that I'm looking at right now. It shows a flying car prototype, and it looks like a square or rectangular shaped craft with a dome on top. Almost, I guess this is maybe this is how our alien visitors first. This is what they had before they moved on to flying saucers. Who knows? But I think it's interesting. I mean, just look at where we're heading right now. So we're all going to be flying around in cars in the not too distant future. Some of us, it will become a way of life. If people younger right now are going to, at some point when they're as old as I am right now, I'm in my 50s. When they're as old as I am, somebody who's 20 years old right now, 30 years from now, flying cars will be passé probably. But that's where we're heading, folks. We're actually, look at the advancements we have all the time, the human race. And if we're around long enough, we're going to be doing the same thing that these visitors are doing. And again, I think that they are from other worlds. I think they're coming here somehow and they just figured it out. That's my belief. Actually, according to Stanton Friedman, he says his conclusion is that some aliens have come to Earth from a planet around the old southern sky stars Zeta 1 and 2 Reticuli, and there are probably others from elsewhere in the local neighborhood, and that they have known we exist for a very long time. I certainly expect that there is some kind of neighborhood association with rules about interference with other more backward civilizations such as ours until we give signs of being able to bother them. Much as we would like to think we are the center of the universe, I am convinced we are on the edge of the neighborhood, perhaps a small fish in a big pond. Yes, and that was from Stanton Friedman's Flying Saucers in Science on page 102. Yeah, I agree with Stanton here. Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think there's beings coming here from probably that place. That was the place that he's mentioning there. ZA1 and 2 reticuli is what the aliens who had abducted Betty and Barney Hill had told Betty Hill where they come from. She saw a star map. That map was recreated. I know there's some debunkers out there who claim that that's all phony and bogus. No, actually, those people who make those claims are phony and bogus. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. But yeah, I think that's what's going on here. That's my opinion. Doesn't make me right. Anyway, I wanted to talk about, recently I was talking about, I slammed in a few recent podcasts. I basically been slamming astronomers and the mainstream news basically for bringing astronomers on as if they were experts on UFOs and extraterrestrial civilizations. They are not. They are not, for sure. And I received a comment from John Billingsley. He's and this was on Spotify, and John is an attorney from Los Angeles, and he actually provided he was a subject in one of my recent podcasts where I talked about, he actually caught an object with his camera inadvertently through the sunroof of his car, and I did a podcast about that recently. But anyway, he had a really interesting comment here. He writes this: "We should look to and rely on astrophysicists and astronomers to explain UFOs just as much as we look to and rely on marine biologists and oceanographers to explain USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Their fields do not qualify them." Exactly. I totally agree with that. I mean, we never see that on TV. I mean, you see astronomers and astrophysicists on TV all the time over the decades. Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson, coming on TV talking about how there's no way for extraterrestrials to come here and it's all bogus, right? We've been hearing that for decades now from all these people, from these astronomers. But we never see anybody coming on TV who's a marine biologist or an oceanographer talking about that there's no way that there's USOs, there's no way that they don't make any sense. We don't believe it. You never see the mainstream media bringing those people on to talk about USOs or unidentified submerged objects. I think that's a great point because they don't know what they're. I mean, obviously, none of these astronomers are educated in a specific field, and the potentiality of extraterrestrial life is not part of that education. And just like biologists and oceanographers aren't educated on USOs, like metallic objects floating or flying around under the water, that's not taught in their schools. Now, USOs could mean a bunch of different things. It could mean a whale, there could be a submarine under the water, and it using its technology, it could realize that there's the people inside the submarine could realize that there's something out there, and they might not know what it is, but it could turn later on. They might figure out that it's a whale, but then sometimes there could be something that's under the water that they can't explain. So another craft, a craft that's moving faster than anything they've ever experienced before. USOs are a big deal. This is something that the Navy has been, navies of the world actually have been encountering for centuries. Actually, I mean, I've heard stories from the 1700s, 1800s, where people at sea see objects rising out of the water and then taking off. Well, actually, I guess they would be more transmedium objects that are able to, they could move underwater, they could move outside of water. I think actually all these UFOs that we're seeing are actually transmedium objects. I believe that they could fly into the water, fly outside of the water, fly outside of the atmosphere of this planet. I believe that that's all of them have this ability. I mean, it doesn't make me right. I think that they do, though. I think that they could go anywhere they want. I think that's just how they were designed. And getting back to about these beings. I mean, obviously these craft, like in some of these crash retrievals we people are talking about, like David Grush and the research conducted by the late Leonard Stringfield tells us that like he found well over 100 different cases he documented. Now, we don't know if all those cases are absolutely true, but I would imagine that some of them are. And they're nuts and bolts crafts. I mean, maybe there's no nuts and bolts in them, but they're solid objects, right? And there's beings that are piloting them that they recovered, dead ones. I mean, there's just so many different people like Leonard Stringfield had talked to or knew about or came across from other researchers, was given information by other people that tells us that, yes, these are flesh and blood beings operating hardware, craft. That it's not something from the future or the past. I think it's something from here, from now, and they're coming from someplace else. I don't think time travel has anything to do with it. But there was an interesting thing. I've been rereading this UFO crash retrievals by Leonard Stringfield, and this is one of the best UFO books anybody could buy. It's a lot of money. It's $100, but it has you could buy them but it's basically, this is a compilation of his status reports. This is something you'll see researchers like Michael Schratt, like he's like an expert on this book, all of these reports that Stringfield put together. But this is the complete investigation, this $100 book, where it has all the status reports. He had 7 reports, and it's fantastic. But anyway, I thought what was interesting here is the fact that there has to be, this is something I talk about a lot on here, that I believe that the government, the United States government, for instance, definitely has a lot of stuff, has captured a lot of UFO history on film that it has never shared yet with the public. I mean, you've heard from the research that I have conducted, the books that I've read. I mean, there's different times where you come across, like for instance, the Roswell crash, where there's been some reports that at the crash site itself, where the main piece was found, where the bodies were found, that there was someone there with the military, with the army, using a film camera to capture everything that was going on there at the time. So somewhere in some vault somewhere, and probably at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, who knows, someplace, Area 51, S4, wherever they're hiding this stuff, there's film. There's film that's been that was taken a long time ago. That's just sitting there in vaults that the public was never given the opportunity to review. But some people were given the opportunity to review, and I've talked about this before, and this is something that you hear Richard Dolan talking about too. Some people were given the opportunity to review this, and according to research conducted by Leonard Stringfield, there were at least 2 people that he came across that had actually seen a film of a crash that occurred at some time apparently in the late 40s or early 50s. But there were 2 different people that were interviewed. One was a Air Force colonel, and another one was a radar specialist for the Air Force. And they told that they had a story to tell, and this is the story. It says here, Mr. T, who holds a technical position in today's civilian life, was at the age of 20 an Air Force radar specialist with secret security clearance stationed in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. In the spring of 1953, he and a small select number of radar specialists were summoned to view a film at the base theater. Without any briefing, the 16mm movie projector was flicked on, and the film began to roll on the screen. Without any titles or credits that he could recall, the film showed a desert scene dominated by a silver disc-shaped object embedded in the sand with a domed section at the top. At the bottom was a hatch or door that was open. In the next scene, T.E., like this guy wouldn't give his name, but he was a very, Stringfield, did a background check. Knew that this guy was he really served as a radar specialist. He did all his due diligence to show that this guy was real, and this guy was authentic as far as Stringfield was concerned. And there was more. He actually got corroboration from a different source later on. But anyway, continuing here. In the next scene, T.E. recalls seeing 10 to 15 military personnel dressed in fatigues and without identification patches standing around what appeared to be a disabled craft. By judging their height against the UFO, TE determined that its width was approximately 15 to 20 feet in diameter, and that an open hatch or door at the bottom was about 2.5 feet wide and perhaps 3 feet high. At this point, TE had no idea of the movie's purpose. I asked about the activity of the personnel. They were just looking at the object, he said. Then the movie switched to what appeared to be the interior of the craft. A panel with a few simple levers was shown, and he remembers being impressed by the muted pastel colors and sudden glares of white, the sign of poor photography. Again, there was a change of scenes. Now in view were two tables, probably taken with inside a tent, on which, to his surprise, were dead bodies. Two were on one table, one on the other. TE said the bodies appeared little by human standards, and most notable were the heads, all looking alike and all being large compared to their body sizes. They looked mongoloid, he thought, with small noses, mouths, and eyes that were shut. He didn't recall seeing ears or hair. The skin, he said, was ashen in color. Each wore a tight-fitting suit in a pastel color. Yellow was mentioned. So this film was really beat up looking, but it was color footage he was seeing. Anyway, continuing, it says, the scene of the dead bodies was the end of the movie. When the lights came on in the theater, the officer in charge stood up and instructed the viewers to think about the movie and added firmly, don't relate its contents to anyone. T.E. said in good faith he didn't even tell his wife. To T.E.'s surprise, 2 weeks later, he was approached by an intelligence officer on the base and was told, forget the movie you saw, it was a hoax. Shortly after seeing the movie, he heard from a couple of top security officers on the base that a UFO had crashed in New Mexico and had been recovered with its occupants. The date of the crash was 1952. And TE went on to say this, the 5-minute-long movie certainly was not a Walt Disney production. It was probably shot by an inexperienced cameraman because it was full of scratches and had poor coloring and texture. And then he did get corroboration from somebody else from a different source that claimed to see the same kind of film later on. And here, this was Stringfield's commentary on the whole thing. He says, with only the slightest variances, both the Colonel and TE's reports describing the film agree. Showing of the film may have been to limited personnel on a need-to-know basis, but it seems that it appeared at a number of military bases. Note, too, that the Air Force major recalls having witnessed part of the film at an undisclosed base. He says this, I cannot believe that the movie used make-believe cadavers and was a trick on a select group of personnel holding the highest degree of security clearance. Once again, the faces of the three humanoids in the movie were described as identical, a characteristic noted by the Air Police Sergeant in a different case and a former CIA official in another case. Anyway, I find that interesting. So it makes you wonder, actually, and realize where are the films? There's film out there that exists, that classic film, historical footage. Could you imagine that kind of footage being released to the public? Footage that was taken in the late 40s, early 50s, and who knows what other, throughout the decades, probably. Every crash retrieval that there has been, I'm sure it's been filmed by military officials. By Air Force officials, whoever was responsible for cleaning up the sites. So we have that, we have that out there. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see actual footage that the military filmed of these crash sites, of the alien bodies that were found at the crash sites. Imagine how fascinating that would be to actually see that. That's something too, unfortunately, that we haven't seen a leak of something like that. And at this point, it's really unfortunate, really. I mean, I just recently I saw there was some video footage of apparent UFO out in California near Air Force, flying around Air Force One. It's been a big deal on Twitter. I don't know if it was a balloon or what it is. There's skeptics out there saying it's just a balloon. You can't tell. See, the problem is that even regardless of that, there's so many cases right now. You can't trust anything. But if you were to actually have old film footage that could be tested, that you could look at and determine, okay, this stuff was from 1951 or from that vicinity, from that era, you would be able that could serve as evidence. That could serve as proof. Although you probably have debunkers out there telling you, they were dummies. that they're showing. They're showing this footage to these to this military personnel for some psyop or something, and they just created it. It was all fake. That's what you probably hear. But I don't. I think most of the world would accept it. But yeah, I just like to know how much footage is out there of these crash sites, of these crash retrieval efforts. How much is out there? Obviously, that's what Stringfield was talking about there. His sources were talking about. Two different sources are saying that that's what it was. I'd love to see it. I mean, it's wasting right now in a vault somewhere. This footage, I'm sure. Hopefully, it's been transferred. Hopefully, it's been, saved. I mean, film gets old. I mean, film rots after so many years. Hopefully, it's been transferred to video. Hopefully, it's been restored. Hopefully, there's film restoration efforts out there trying to save old films all the time. Hopefully, people in the military have taken the steps necessary to save whatever film they have on this. I mean, this is something that we need to have. The human race should have access to those old films that I'm sure still exist someplace. You would hope. Hopefully, they didn't destroy them. There's some concern that might be happening. That maybe some of these people who are in the control group, they might be trying to cover their tracks and try to destroy all evidence that would show that the reality that there is an extraterrestrial presence here. I've heard those kind of concerns raised before. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they wouldn't destroy footage like this. It would be too important. The footage would be too important. But I would love to see it. Hopefully maybe some whistleblower out there might have access to something, and who knows, maybe someday we'll get something. But again, it would be difficult to prove it. Unless the government itself were to release it, it would be difficult to prove anything as authentic at this juncture because of the technology that's available to anybody. I mean, even a novice could use a video editing program and make something and make it look like it might be real. It's a shame, really. So that's why, really we should have had disclosure a long time ago for reasons just like what I'm talking about now. Anyway, I want to go to the recent poll that I conducted, and this was for the episode, "The UFO cover-up was always a bad idea" /UK official believed UFOs were demonic manifestations. I asked this question: do you believe UFOs and extraterrestrials are manifestations created by Satan? Okay, so far, 83 votes. 14 people, or 16.9%, say yes, while 69 people, or 83.1%, say no. I agree with the majority on this one. I do not believe that is the case at all. I do not believe that. Now, I did get a comment from someone on Spotify. All work and low pay says this: just wanted to say I think there should be a maybe option for this episode's poll. I would have chose that. You never know. Okay, I should have had a maybe in there. Maybe. So that's what all work and low pay believes, that it could be a maybe. And yes, he's right. I should have threw a maybe in there. I don't think it is. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think it's demonic. I don't think it's anything like that. I actually saw Tucker Carlson recently was talking about this stuff, and he made this comment. Let me pull it up here. And I don't agree with it. Here's what he said. Here's a direct comment from Tucker Carlson. He says this. He says, "My own view is that these are not aliens. There's no evidence that they've come from somewhere else. I think they've been here forever. I think it's likely that the United States government has had direct contact with these over a period of years. I find that really disturbing, and a bunch of other things that are highly distressing that I can't prove. I think it's very clear that there's a spiritual component to this. That's one of the reasons the Vatican has been involved in this for over 100 years, has an observatory, etc. I mean, it's pretty obvious that these are not men from Mars." Okay, there's a lot of issues I have with Tucker Carlson's comment here. For one thing, I think that they are aliens. I think they are coming from someplace else. And he says there's no evidence that they've come from somewhere else. Well, there's no evidence that they're demons from hell either, whatever he's talking about here, or that they're spiritual in nature. And then he says, it's pretty obvious that these are not men from Mars. Okay, now, I don't know what he means by that comment. Obviously, they're not men from Mars. I don't think anyone in the UFO community believes that these beings are from Mars. I think they believe that they're from planets outside of the solar system. But what I think he meant there by saying that kind of comment, he's meaning that it's pretty obvious that these aren't men from Mars, or really what he's saying is they're not men from other planets. That's what he might be saying anyway. I don't agree with any of this stuff that he's saying here. Again, I'm not sure what the depth of Tucker Carlson's investigation into this topic. How many books has he read on this? I mean, he's been talking about politics forever and ever and ever, and now all of a sudden he's going to start talking about extraterrestrials. I think he might need to do a little bit more research before. See, here's the problem: when people like Tucker Carlson starts talking, this is the same kind of issue that I have with debunkers out there, people who are low information, like Mick West. Obviously, he's not studied this topic. He keeps. I mean, it's obvious. He'll debunk things without really investigating them. Like, for instance, Mick West, the debunker, just made a comment about the Vegas aliens, saying it was obviously a hoax. And he never investigated. He never did any kind of investigation. He called it a hoax immediately the second that thing happened. The second that those claims popped up online, he just automatically went right to hoax. Like, he bypassed go and went straight to hoax without ever really investigating it. Now, I've done some investigation into that, as well as did a lot of other people. In fact, Scott Roeder, the crime scene reconstruction expert, was on my show, and he identified what he believes could look like a being that was filmed in the backyard of that Las Vegas family. So here's the problem. To me, right, when you have someone who has a platform as big as Tucker Carlson making statements like this is going to make a lot of people believe everything that this guy says. So they're going to say, oh, they're not from outer space. You're going to start hearing this now. They're not from outer space. They're spiritual in nature, without any proof whatsoever. He says there's no proof that they're aliens. Well, where's this proof that they're spiritual in nature? Present it then. Now, there's more proof that suggests that they are extraterrestrial in nature. Like, again, like I was talking earlier, Betty and Barney Hill, those aliens actually told them where they're from. There's been other cases like this. If you were to read the alien abduction literature, these beings on multiple occasions told different abductees that they're from someplace else. They're from other different planet. This is out this direction, or they would actually talk about it. And these people weren't expected to remember this or ever talk about it. It was just the aliens were giving this information, but they did. But then their memories they didn't remember it until they were hypnotized later on. So there's evidence that suggests that these beings are from other places. And I think that's the case. I think it seems like they have been visiting this planet for off and on. It seems. I mean, you don't hear a lot of cases in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. The late 1800s, you had a little uptick there in the late 1800s with the airship mystery, right? And alleged crash in Aurora, Texas. And then it died down, and then it was during World War II, people start seeing Foo Fighters. And then 1946, there was the ghost rockets out in Sweden. And then 47 was when Kenneth Arnold and everybody else started seeing these things en masse. It was like a show of force, and it's never been the same since. And not only that, we started seeing there's been humanoid encounters started up. Were heavier in the late 40s, 50s. You start hearing about those. You start reading about. You didn't hear about them in the press that much, but you see stories from that time period now where people did experience humanoids, the occupants, the pilots of the ships. There's been crash retrievals. I mean, this has been going on a long time, but it seems like they showed up in force after World War II. That's where it seems like things changed. Like they have been here. For all we know, there could have been just probes that they sent here in advance. We just don't know. We just don't know how long they've been here or how many were here before we start dropping atomic bombs. But it seems like after we start dropping atomic bombs, they showed up. The numbers increased. The sightings increased. The alien abduction and cattle mutilation started becoming a thing. So I know it's not demonic in nature. These are objects, solid objects that are manufactured. Where are they? If they're here all this time, where are they manufacturing these objects? Where under the ocean somewhere? I mean, where has it been going on? I think they're coming from someplace else, and I think they're staying here, whatever the purpose is, we don't know. But they are most certainly here, and I don't think that they are. I don't think that they're time travelers, and I don't think they're from hell. And I don't think they're spiritual in nature. I think they're solid objects, and I think they're beings that are either they're these beings themselves might just be like Gary Nolan says, they could be biological robots. That could be the case too. We just don't know. We don't know who the puppet masters are of these things, but they're coming from someplace else. That's one thing I am pretty sure of. And I think a lot of people who study this closely believe the same thing. But hey, it doesn't make me right. It doesn't make me right. But again, I think that comments like this coming from people who have big platforms are hurtful. They hurt this. I mean, just recently, Joe Rogan made a comment too that I thought was... and then now he changed tune. Like first it seemed like he had David Grush on a show, and then after that he had another guest, and he talks like, oh, it's nonsense, and now he's changing his tune all the time. That affects people. People who have large platforms like this, it changes the narrative. Now the narrative for some people on this, people who might not even care about this subject, could possibly change because of the things that someone like Tucker Carlson says. I mean, where does he have his proof that it's spiritual and it's obvious that they're not coming from other planets? Where is that? How is that obvious to you? Well, you just made that up. He made it up. Okay. But anyway, I'm off on a rant here. But yeah, I think they're coming from other planets. They're coming from other planets. That's just my belief. I know there's going to be people out there who disagree, but there's nothing I can do about that. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.